introducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the president. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger. And yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. It conducts the Cold War in short, with a wartime discipline no democracy would ever hope or wish to match. Nevertheless, every democracy recognizes the necessary restraints of national security. And the question remains whether those restraints need to be more strictly observed if we are to oppose this kind of attack as well as outright invasion.
What's up? This is Why You Tripping Off Me in the building. I think there's some things going on this evening. Might be some sports or whatnot. So if you catch this now, you can catch it later. It is all good. But I will not repeat myself during this show. During this show, I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to keep going forward. I'm going to say what I got to say, get in, get out, but I'm not going to refresh or rehash. You would just have to check out the replay. Today's topic is about the book 1984, George Orwell's Big Brother. I did mention Big Brother before and on while I was live, stuff like that, and I noticed in the chat room that a couple of people, or at least one, said, "Who is Big Brother?" And I was surprised they didn't catch that reference. But the book is 70 years old, but people still come across that book either in school or something like that, mostly in school. My son just got through watching an animated movie that was basically, it was Animal Farm but told in animation. So yes, George Orwell wrote Animal Farm, if you're familiar with that, and then he wrote 1984, which was his claim to fame. His book, believe it or not, when the President Trump was inaugurated, the book sale of 1984 went up 9,000%. And the copyright is, this happened right when the copyright became public domain. So that's interesting so now they're going to republish, I think, 75,000 copies as a physical book. So that's something for you to, food for thought. If you want to read this book or get the PDF or listen to the audio version of this book is 10 hours. So you pick your poison, you know what I'm saying? But now, a lot of people do know about this book, so I'm going to get this part out the way, basically the plot and the summary, and then we're going to get into each character and stuff like that. Now, 1984 is set in a possible future in which the world has been ravaged by war, and hungry and fearful citizens must pledge allegiance to a paranoid regime that keeps them ignorant through misinformation. Okay? Winston Smith, the main character of the novel, lives in London, though England is now called Airstrip 1, and Airstrip 1 is part of a large superstate called Oceania, which comprise of all of Britain, Iceland, Australia, and New Zealand, and as well as the Americas in Southern Africa. Now, 1984 was written in 1948 during a period of time where they definitely, if they did have TVs, it definitely wasn't flat screens. They didn't have TVs, and this was post-nuclear war. There was, this is science fiction, but even though the book was written in 1948, in the story there was a nuclear war in the 60s. They had this thing called I think it was called, I forgot what it's called, but it was like a television, but it was oval shape, and it was flat, and it had a monitor that can see you, and you can see the TV, and it can see you, but it wasn't called it was called like a tele talk or a tele, and that's messed up because that's a very important to the story, but it'll come to me later. But it's called basically it's a talking TV. It's called a tele talk or something like that. So anyway, it's a two-way television set, but it wasn't square. It was oval shape, and they can see you as clear as you can see it. Because this is old school sci-fi. Back then, they didn't realize that a camera could be the size of a needle. Today, back then, they had a round shape camera underneath the oval big screen, and it had like some kind of fluctuation going on, so you could tell that it was on at all times. Basically, you're being monitored. There was no privacy, and only certain class of people can afford these two-way television sets, and that's the people they was mainly concerned with. And most of those people worked for the government. The pros, which was the lower class citizens, they didn't have to really concern themselves with that. But we'll get into the pros later. Not much will be said about them except that they're just factory workers, baby making machines, and their ignorance made their life pretty nice because of their ignorance. But anyway, in Oceania, a force called Big Brother watches and spies on people through the telescreen. That's what it's called. The telescreen. All right. Which are like TVs that transmit both ways. It does double duty, spying on the citizens and transmitting pro-party propaganda, my favorite word, instructions, and calisthenics, pro-Big Brother music, and more. So Big Brother had its own music that it broadcasts that the pros love to hear. You can catch a pro singing some of the melodies from the music they hear from Big Brother's broadcast while they're doing laundry and doing chores at home or at the cafe having coffee. They loved it. Anyway, the city is plastered with party slogans such as "War is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength." This doublethink is a concept that rules Oceania. Doublethink is the ability to hold on to two opposing beliefs at the same time and accepting both of them. But doublethink concepts can cancel each other out and therefore make no sense. Also, I need you to know that they have ministries, right? The Ministry of Truth, where Winston works, the main character of the story. He's in charge of the rewriting of history to align with the party, and the party decides, the party decides truth at the moment, and the Ministry of Love is in charge of the law and order, and torture, and the Ministry of Plenty is in charge of economics. So Winston's job basically is to write down history as it needs to be remembered, but not as it really is. So if the leader gives us a presidential speech and he's not going to write down that speech exactly as it was said word for word, it's going to be written down as how the party wants the speech to be remembered. Okay. Now we have several main characters in this book. And since nobody's here at the moment, we can go through these characters. Now, Winston Smith is the protagonist. And you know what's funny is most American movies is about the protagonist. Through whose eyes the story is told, Winston belongs to the outer party, yet he hates all it stands for and secretly rebels. Okay? Big Brother is the mustachioid embodiment of the party who rules Oceania and who's likely only a symbol for a totalitarian rule rather than a real person. Okay? O'Brien is a member of the inner party whom Winston instinctively follows as a man who seems to share his hatred for the party. But that's only an assumption. And you know what they say about assumptions. You know what I'm saying? Julia, a young woman and fellow hater of Big Brother with whom Winston builds a romantic relationship. Let's not forget that 1984 is actually a love story, but it's things that go on and the things that put pressure on their relationship is what we find most interesting. Now, Emmanuel Goldstein. Emmanuel Goldstein is a former leader of the party who now leads the Brotherhood, a counter-revolutionary group against the party that may or may not actually exist. Mr. Charrington appears to be a member of the pros, or working class, who owns an antique shop in London, and from when Winston rents a room for a secret rendezvous with Julia. Okay. Now, so he got his little spot where he meets Julia for a little, a little this, a little that, because they got tired of going out to the woods. You know what I'm saying? And that's another story. So, Catherine is Winston's wife. Though they no longer see each other, she is so repulsed by Winston that they are unable to conceive a child. Since divorce is illegal, Catherine simply leaves Winston. The Thought Police. The Thought Police is a party branch that uses telescreens and other surveillance to report the thought crimes. All right. Mr. Persona. Mr. Persona is the ideal outer party member. He's Winston's neighbor and Victory Mansion and a lower level co-worker at the Ministry of Truth. Okay. And lurkers are welcome. I don't mind talking to myself because I know it's all good on the playback. Now, Mrs. Persona is married to Mr. Persona, or Mr. Parsons. I'm sorry, I mispronounced it. Mrs. Parsons is married to Mr. Parsons and is an overworked homemaker. She is raising 2 children whom she worries are spies, likely to turn either parent into the thought police. So these 2 parents constantly have to live with the fact that their little kids are so gung-ho for Big Brother because they're in like a ROTC that they're worried about their own kids turning them into the thought police. And the children are brainwashed. They watch these TV shows, the cartoons that tells them that don't trust anybody, including your parents. If you see them acting unpatriotic, call this number. And they want to get a badge or rewarded, because whenever they do something for the party, they will be rewarded, and they love to be the children love to be the center of attention. So it gives them some kind of power. So they actually talk to their parents very disrespectful, like they are already an adult, because they got Big Brother to defend them, to reward them for anything. So they could even lie on their parents if they don't like them, or if they want to seek acknowledgement. So Sim is a creative intellect. Sim is a creative, intelligent yet orthodox member of the outer party. He is a colleague of Winston at the Ministry of Truth, who is helping to write the 11th edition of the Newspeak Dictionary. And the Newspeak Dictionary, basically, they keep coming out with a new edition over and over, and it basically, they created this library. Well, they created a dictionary of words, but every time they come out with a new issue, it has less words. They remove tons of verbs from the book, because if you don't have a word that express your situation or your needs, then those needs or situations do not exist. So if you took the word poor out the dictionary, nobody will ever feel poor again, because they don't know what poor is, and it's not in the dictionary, it's not in the language. So you'll never feel poor. Isn't that interesting? What's up, Ruby Rose? Welcome back. Long time no see, and it's cool. Check in for a second. If you don't got much time, that's fine. Feel free to catch the playback. I was just going through the characters of 1984 George Orwell book, and I'm on the last character, which is the singing prole woman. Prole is Prole. And the singing prole woman beneath Winston's rented room symbolizes the freedom of the proles, and the only hope for all society to regain is freedom. And really, many of the party workers envy the pros, even though the pros, their life is very simple. They don't even know, even the outer party don't even know what wine tastes like. Okay, they're happy with their beer, their little government music, and they're maybe playing chess and making babies. The average pro woman would have 8 to 15 kids, and they use them for the military and stuff like that. Yes, what's up, Observer? So the only thing that you guys missed was I went through the character list of 1984, and I went through the plot summary, and that's no big deal. At the very, very beginning, I played a speech by Kennedy when he was talking about secret societies, and that speech is so famous. You will when you hit the replay, you'll be able to see the beginning. So Winston Smith, he's a citizen of Oceania who works at the Ministry of Truth, but it's really the Ministry of Lies. Winston copes with his misery by writing in secret journals when the telescreen is not watching, but the telescreen is always watching. You can't even get up and walk and look out the window without them asking you why you get up and look out the window. And Winston thought that nobody saw him write in his secret journal, but Big Brother don't miss a beat, okay? Julia slipped Winston a letter that said, "I love you." She act like that she got hurt by a piece of equipment, and when they was escorting her to the place to get looked at, she slipped Winston a note saying simple words, I love you. But they knew that. They saw that. Big Brother saw that. This book was written when they didn't have video cameras or TVs and stuff. So this author had a very vivid imagination. George Orwell had a very vivid imagination to have that kind of insight. George Orwell, his real name is Eric Arthur Blair. All right. He considered himself a democratic socialist. He died a year after his book was published at age 46. And it was made into a film in 1984. But back in 1956, BBC made their own version. And then I think it was another American version before 1984. But the big Hollywood production was 1984. And I want to welcome everybody into the room. And what's up, 3Ts and Observer and Ruby and everybody. I'm in the zone right now. You have to excuse me. And this book is a love story. But the byproduct story, the side story, it's about censorship and surveillance. Censorship and surveillance. Keep that in mind, okay? And a lot of people say, yeah, Big Brother and Big Brother's watching you. And you know that book, 1984? Well, they forget about the fact that it's a love story. And let me tell you something. I said this earlier. The sales of this book went up 9,000% when Donald Trump was inaugurated. So for some reason, citizens thought this book correlates to Donald Trump becoming president. For some odd reason, this book sales went up 9,000%, which I just find incredible. That a book that's 70 years old has regenerated more interest now. And they're going to republish 75,000 more copies. That's crazy. Winston becomes attracted to Julia at work, and Winston fears she is a member of the thought police until she slips him a love note. And then Winston and Julia falls in love and meet in a secret. They meet in secret where they believe they're unwatched. Now they used to meet out in a park somewhere because they didn't think they would have microphones and stuff out there, but they still thought the birds and stuff could be robots. The birds could be watching them. And Winston asked Julia, first of all, Winston, he married, but he was married, and him and his wife wasn't, she was repulsed by him. So she wasn't even sleeping with him, and they're not allowed to get divorced. And so she just left him. So Winston met this girl she was actually following him around too, because he used to go to this antique store, and she came in, and he thought that she was, because she was so, on the surface, she's so patriotic. I mean, she do the pep rallies, the bake sales, everything. It was nothing that made you think that she was part of the resistance of the, what I'm saying? It was nothing that made you think that she hated the party. So he thought that he was going to have to kill her at first until she slipped him that note. But when they started meeting out in the park, in the forest, I guess, secretly, he looked at her and said, "You've been here before, huh?" And she was like, "Yeah, I've been here before. Is that going to be a problem?" And he was like, "No." So her little hoe has been out there in the park with other members, but she said, but none of them, they were scared, and they couldn't get past what they were, they couldn't hang, basically what she was saying. So anyway, so they got tired of going to the park because they knew that eventually they would be found out there, and and somebody came out there and they almost was seen, so they had to switch up. So Winston is drawn to the Revolutionary Brotherhood. He then seeks out their leader, and O'Brien, who plans to share the Brotherhood manifesto. Oh, I'm sorry, O'Brien. Winston is drawn to the Brotherhood, so Winston thought O'Brien would be something in O'Brien made Winston assume that O'Brien, you know, O'Brien would help him, like he's on the Brotherhood. So O'Brien turns out to be a member of the Thought Police, and Winston and Julia are arrested and find that their room was being watched because they got a room over in the antique store. But O'Brien acted like he was just this old lonely antique dealer whose wife had died, but he was down with the, he was basically, the Thought Police was setting them up from the very beginning. So O'Brien tortures Winston in room 101, and faced with his deepest fears, rats, Winston tells O'Brien to torture Julia instead. And it's funny because they said out in the park that they would never tell on each other. Like they could torture us, they could take everything away, but they can't control our minds, and we don't have to. But as soon as they broke out with that rat, he was like, "Oh no, torture her instead." So you never know what you'll do under pressure, and I want you to see how much they were into each other and how much of a risk they were taking, and this will give you a little idea. Okay. They said that they deleted copyrighted audio from my stream. So I don't know if it was the speech from Kennedy or this video clip. I knew this show was going to be an issue, but it's been an issue for the past 24 hours. Was you able to hear the audio from the video clip?
You searching for the hidden microphone, weren't you? There aren't any. We're all right here.
We're all right here.
I found this place once when I got lost on a community hike. It's quite safe.
Is it?
Oh, you can trust me. Please trust me.
Oh, I wanted to believe you. What you wrote, I wanted to very much.
But the note wasn't enough.
What's your name?
Julia, I know yours. It's Winston. See, I'm better at finding things out than you are. Tell me, what had you been thinking about me?
I hated the sight of you. I wanted to murder you to smash your head in.
Why?
You followed me.
Well, I wanted to speak to you.
I thought you were something to do with the thought police.
I'm not the thought police. You honestly thought that.
You're young and strong and healthy.
Pure in word and deed, banners, possessions, slogans, games, all that stuff. And you thought if I'd half a chance, I'd denounce you and get you killed off.
Something of the kind. A lot of young girls would.
Actually, I am that sort to look at. Keep an eager face. Always shout with the crowd. Never shirk anything. Then you're safe. I do voluntary work 3 evenings a week for the Anti-Sex League. So I've earned this filthy thing.
I'm 35 years old. I've got a wife I can't get rid of. Physical grade 3.
I couldn't care less.
Or will you? I will say it. We have come here because we believe there is some sort of organization working against the party and that you are involved in it.
We want to belong to it.
We are enemies of the party. We disbelieve in the principles of INGSOC. We are thought criminals. We want to put ourselves at your mercy. If that isn't sufficient...
Martin is one of us. Pick a chair for yourself. You can stop being a servant now. We'll sit down and talk in comfort. This is called wine. You will have read about it in books, no doubt. I'm afraid very little of it reaches the outer party.
See, that guy ran into Winston at work, and he thought that, see, he already knew what Winston was up to. He already knew that Winston was writing in his diary. He already knew that Julia slipped him a note, and they were setting him up from day one. He knew, he gave the impression that he might be with the underground, but he let him dig his own grave because Winston was so, he just assumed too much. He is just like he assumed that she was with the thought police, and so he trusted the guy at the antique store. The guy at the antique store knew how to play him, and the guy said, "Look, he already knew that they were using the old version of Newspeak, the Newspeak dictionary, and that since he's on the higher up in the party, he knew that the new book was coming out in a couple of months, and he told Winston to come by the house and he could give him the advanced copy. And what was funny was Winston thought that was a signal that, hey, come by my house and we could talk off the record. And when he cut the telespeak off, that was really crazy because they was making an announcement. He said, "Wow, you got the power to do that?" He said, "Yeah, we could do that, But even though Winston is a part of the, he works for the government, he still, can't drink things like wine and stuff like that. Only the big dogs. So this was the first time that Winston even tasted wine, and it was this funny because you got to understand the whole time they was playing them, the whole time. So they let him dig his own grave. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you could really relate this to now, like Winston did all of this physically in person, face to face, and they still had surveillance equipment around them all times. They're under surveillance right now. He just cut the camera off, but he's so high up in Big Brother, whether the thing is off or not, he's like the thing. He's big part of the group think. Big Brother is an idea, like Uncle Sam is not a physical person. And this guy invented, like, I don't believe that Goldstein is a real person. I think he was invented. The guy who's pouring the wine for Winston, he wrote the book that they think that can help them overthrow the government. So they created the enemy, and they're so confident and so comfortable that it's like these people believe that they can link up with Goldstein or follow his ideas and his book and have a slight chance of overthrowing the government. But they invented the enemy. They wrote the book that they was going to use, and they know all, see all. When they say Big Brother is watching you, they really watching you. So the thing is, to make the connection, when you're on Facebook and all this stuff, and you're like, maybe you got mad at something that happened in real life, that physically really happened, right? Maybe somebody cut you off on the freeway or something like that. And then you get on Facebook and say, this motherfucker cut me off. I came close to killing that motherfucker. I had my shit with me too, but I had somewhere to be, and I ain't trying to go to jail. But that motherfucker, man, he almost died today. Now, you thought that you was just expressing yourself and you really wasn't serious. You was trying to be funny and shit like that. But Big Brother wrote that shit down. Whatever you text on a social network or on your phone in a memo or a MMS message, it is time stamped and dated, and it's a document. It is an official document. So in this book, 1984, there are so many telespeak screens around that basically that's doing the documentation, and you don't need a computer, you don't need social network, because these things, there's so many of these things around that they're documenting your every move. You can't even go look out the window without them saying, what are you doing? All right, we're going to take a note of that. You went to look out the window for what? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Next time, put the copyright in the description box. Okay. I think it was the Kennedy speech that did me in. I played too much for too long. So we'll see how that turns out. Worst case scenario, you just fast forward at the beginning and skip past I don't think they'll black out the whole show. I don't think they would. So you know how people have mastered the art of self-snitching on social networks and stuff. Well, check out Winston. He's finna snitch on himself because he assumes that this guy is this guy who's secretly down for the cause. All right, and this is O'Brien. Okay. Mr. Cheriton is the antique shop owner who's also an agent. So check this out.
He speaks for me too.
You are prepared to give your lives?
Yes.
Commit sabotage, even murder?
Yes.
Betray your country to a foreign power?
Yes.
To cheat, forge, blackmail, disseminate drugs?
Yes.
To do anything likely to cause demoralization and weaken the power of the party?
Yes.
If, for instance, it would somehow suit our purpose to throw sulfuric acid in a child's face, you are prepared to do that?
Yes.
To lose your identity and live out your life as a waiter or a dock worker? To commit suicide if and when we order?
Yes.
You are prepared, the two of you, to separate and never see one another again?
No.
No.
You did well to tell me. We must know everything. Martin, take a good look at these two comrades. You will be seeing them again, I may not. Now, go back to your pantry. I shall be switching on in a quarter of an hour.
O'Brien played him the whole time. O'Brien was playing him. When he said yes to all of that stuff, it was being recorded and documented because the Big Brother is watching it all times. It looked like he turned the thing off, but the thing was still recording and everything. And he told his servant to, he said, you don't have to act like you're a servant anymore. He's down with us. It was hilarious if you see the scene. And, Winston was like, yes, whatever I got to do, And then he thought that this thing went down successfully. He thought that now the ball is rolling. Now I'm going to be a part of something. It may not happen while I'm alive, but at least my little input will have something to do with that. Yeah, that instrumental has been flipped and remixed and tweaked out and flipped and tweaked out. Yeah, let me see. Hold on. Because I have to turn the audio on after the fact for some reason. I had the wrong settings on the audio. But here we go.
Oceania, and Russia took Europe to form Eurasia. Two of the three world states were in being. Their ideologies were INSOC, Neo-Bolshevism, and later death worship in East Asia. These three states are permanently at war.
Then it's not a sham.
Wait. War has changed its character. It exists only to preserve tyranny. Fighting, when there is any, takes place on vague tropical frontiers or around the floating fortresses. The essential act of war is the destruction of human labor, a way of shattering or sinking the materials which might be used to make the masses too comfortable, in the long run, too intelligent. No invasion of enemy territory must ever take place.
Then the real war isn't with Eurasia at all. It's between all of us
And them. The party member, like the proletarian, tolerates conditions because he has nothing with which to compare his way of life. Efficiency, even military efficiency, is no longer needed. In Oceania, nothing is efficient except the thought police.
The swine, the filthy swine.
Yeah, after the war in 68 or something like that, they divided into Oceania, Eurasia, and one other one I forgot. But I said it earlier, it's just that after this time period, it slipped my mind. But Oceania, Eurasia, and I can't think of the other one. But like I said, it's further back. But he did model this book after a communist society, but this can be applied to Korea or China. And China, America has 30 million surveillance cameras, and China has more than that. And China is a straight example of Big Brother in this book, in the mind state and the concept. and definitely Korea and a few other countries. And the only difference with us is all it takes is one flip of a switch for us to be that way. See, the infrastructure is already put in. We're not like that, but all it takes is a flip of a switch. And I'm gonna get into that later, but I have one more final clip. And basically after that scene, Big Brother busts them. See, when they rented him the room, there was an odd painting on the wall, and he told them that it was just an old painting and don't trip off of it. But that this painting moved, and it exposed the telespeak screen, and they were cold busted, and now they got to go to a rehabilitation center. And inside that place, there's a room called Room 101, which you really don't want to go. Now, most of the time, you will be evaporated, where not only you'll be evaporated, but any evidence that you ever existed would be erased, even in the press, even in documents. And that's the easy route. But if they think that they can make you healthy again, because basically, if you want to overthrow the government, you're just mentally messed up and you're unhealthy. So they have 100% rate on making people healthy again. So that tells you how sick they are with the torture and everything. And so this is a scene from when after they've been busted and brought into the place, and he didn't even realize where he was at because they've been beating him up for 7 weeks. So after 7 weeks, he's like, where am I? Am I in room 101? And after beating him up kicking his ass for 7 weeks, like Guantanamo Bay or something, he's like, am I in room 101? And they go, nope, not yet. You're not there yet. So just imagine. And he saw other people beg and plead not to be taken to room 101. Okay.
Means but an end. Power over the human mind, and power over all matter, climate, disease, the laws of gravity, because we control the mind. Reality is inside the skulls. We control the laws of nature. The stars are not light years, but a few kilometers away. If we wished, we could blot them out. Here, that is power. In our world, there will be no love but the love of Big Brother, no laughter but the laugh of triumph over a defeated enemy, no art, no science, no literature, no enjoyment, but always and only, Winston, there will be the thrill of power. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stomping on the human face forever. Now, this version of the book, this film, which was inspired by the book, was made in 1956 by BBC. Now, you can Google this and you can search for this in YouTube and you will find it and you can watch it for free. There is a second Hollywood production that was made. It's in black and white, but it's kind of like have a bluish tone. It's been remastered. That one's for free too. But the official Hollywood production came out in 1984 because the book was called 1984. So the one that's really well made was done in 1984, but I think YouTube wants $2 or something to watch it, $2.99 or something like that. But there are 2 other free versions of this movie, of this book as a movie. And there's an auditory book on YouTube, but it's 10 hours long. And so yeah. He telling you, he kept torturing him. He's like, look, 2 and 2 is 5. And the guy's like, no, 2 and 2 is 4. And he said, tortured him. Now, can you see that 2 and 2 is 5? He says, yes, I see it. And then it fades back to 4. Do you see 2? You see what I'm saying? He said, we the one that told you 2 and 2 is 4. We taught you, wouldn't have known that. He said, no, look, 2 and 2. Yeah, we taught you how to achieve 4 by 2 and 2, but 2 and 2 is 5. You see, because now that's what we say. Everything we invented, 2 and 2 is 4, and we can change it to 5. It's 5. It's been 5 for a long time. You see. Also, the Earth is the center of the universe. No, the Earth is the third planet from the sun, and all the planets revolve around the sun. No, all the planets, including the sun, revolve around the Earth. And he said, no, we learned that in school. Exactly. We taught you that, but the truth is, the Earth is. You see what I'm saying? You're in room 101 now, and we're gonna tell you the truth, and you may not be able to handle it. You know, in that torture room, they have took out people's teeth, cut people's fingers, and all kind of stuff to get people back in line, whether what they're telling them is the truth or not. They call it the ministry of truth, but it's really not. And he brainwashed him and Julia to the point when they got out, they was not interested in seeing each other after all that love and all that they felt for each other. They were so broken, and he told them, look, you wouldn't heal from this 1,000 years from now, 100 years from now. You would never be the same. You know what I'm saying? I want to play that clip back again because the first part of it got cut off. I want to make sure you catch every word of this. All right.
The party seeks power for its own sake, not as a means but an end. Power over the human mind, and power over all matter, climate, disease, the laws of gravity. Because we control the mind. Reality is inside the skulls. We control the laws of nature. The stars are not light years, but a few kilometers away. If we wished, we could blot them out. Here, that is power. In our world, there will be no love but the love of Big Brother, no laughter but the laugh of triumph over a defeated enemy, no art, no science, no literature, no enjoyment, but always and only, Winston, there will be the thrill of power. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
That's definitely a cult leader mentality. Hint, hint. That's definitely what goes on in a cult-like community or society. Those same types of philosophies. You know what I'm saying? So I hear you, 3Ts and an observer. Now, this story is about censorship and surveillance. And right now in America, at this time that we live in now, it's about censorship and surveillance. You see how Farrakhan and stuff and other things that's going on. People been booted from social networks and stuff like that. And, you know, in 1984, there were always two nations constantly at war. And sometimes Oceania would bomb itself, you know, just to keep their own people on edge and keeping them mad at the enemy. And every day they would have to show their hatred for the enemy for 2 minutes. They call it the 2-minute hate period. And if you didn't have an expression on your face of anger or something like that, or chant hate, hate, hate at the screen, they thought that the thought police, that's what they call it. Because see, they stop crime before it happens. They come after you when you think about a crime. See what I'm saying? So they don't have crime. They have a thought police that nip crime in the bud before it happens. So when you look like you ain't tripping off the enemy, they come and get you and take you to the facility to cure you of your sickness. And Goldstein book was a symbolic enemy of the state. Goldstein book gave people that was against the government hope, but they invented that book. They took care. They already knew that there would be people like that, so they already had an antidote for that, and they was able to get those people too. You see what I'm saying? And Goldstein book starts out, it was a cold day in April when the clock strikes 13. All right, so that just lets you know that it's on some other shit right there. So the thought police stops crime before it happens. And the crazy thing about newspeak, which is like Webster's dictionary or whatever, it narrows the range of thought. You know what I'm saying? And it also has these weird words that cancel each other out, like double think, thought crime, belly feel, duck speak. And where they rehabilitate you at, it's called the Ministry of Love. But when you go inside the facility, you get no love. You get your ass beat. So Winston had been beaten for 7 weeks before he realized how long he was at the Ministry of Love. And so, it's crazy. Today you have people, instead of Winston, today you have people like Edward Snowden. You have the NSA data center, and you have the MDR massive data repository. All right. So the massive data repository, guess what it does? It stores all the data that you're posting on your networks and on your phones and all that stuff. You see what I'm saying? Massive data repository. You can't name it no better than that. All right. And then you got the NSA. And social media data, social media exchange data with the government. They all got back doors where NSA can go in the back door, and they keep metadata for about a year. In Europe, they have this CCHQ. You cannot avoid a camera in downtown London or whatever. You can't. If smoking a joint was illegal, and you smoke a joint downtown London, they don't even need a police there. They'll just come and get you where you stand. You know what I'm saying? And then outside of government are many groups analyzing our information anyway, corporations. And before 9/11, the NSA only contracted work out to less than 3,000 companies. But after 9/11, the NSA contracted work out to over 7,000 companies, and they allowed them to use NSA databases, which they gather data on citizens, that the data that they get from their computer use and their phone use and all that stuff. Even when you have to type in a number to get a discount at a grocery store or something like that, every time you make a purchase and you put in your little discount code, which is like your phone number or something, all that gets recorded. You see what I'm saying? Nothing is safe. We have become a American industrial state, and the NSA is allowed to spy on the whole world. The NSA slow dances with social networks, and information is the oxygen of a democracy. That's what I heard one politician say. Yes. And that sounds quite odd to me, but that's what it is said. And the NSA stands on, their property is like more than 325 acres large. they have a small army, a fire department, and a SWAT team, but they still couldn't stop Edward Snowden, okay, from leaking the information. And some people consider him a hero. Some of our policies have been changed because of his leaks and information. And you cannot say that he's not a patriot. But there's a possibility of 4,000 more people like Edward Snowden in the NSA. And those people are referred to as insider threats. So yeah, 1984 Big Brother, these two-way television sets, these, we got the smart TVs now. Samson already admitted to saying that they listen to conversations near the television. They can hear you. The Alexa have already put in the bid with the government to grant permission to listen at all times instead of waiting to be called upon. You don't have to call Alexa's name for it to listen, and they looking for approval for that. And if this 5G technology come around, I think that they will be able to look through walls with the device using Wi-Fi, but they only can see silhouettes, I think. But they might be able to see silhouettes through walls. But we was told that Wi-Fi cannot travel through walls and trees. So, we're trying to figure that one out too. There's some mixed information out there. So the point of all this is that sometimes the propaganda that's put out there that sounds really good, that make you say, it sounds like they would do something like that, or it's the Illuminati, it's this and that. It could be the same people that's governing you. They're putting that BS out there to distract you. It's a psyops, psyops, and these are crisis workers. You have to really fall back and just observe everything and make chess moves, and you can't jump on every conspiracy that pop up because the policymakers could be the same people that create the conspiracies. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I was going to go live at midnight last night. I wasn't feeling well. I had a slight headache, and that could have been Big Brother also. I tried to upload some videos saying, hey, I'm having trouble, but I'm going to go live about this. And it's been a really big challenge to do this show, and I'm not even nobody. I don't have a bunch of viewers and stuff like that. But I hope they didn't eliminate Kennedy's speech at the beginning, because out of everything I said today, Kennedy's speech at the beginning of this show about secret societies and stuff, I think was the most relevant. And I'm feeling my headache coming back, and like I said, that could be something to do with the powers that be. But I appreciate y'all coming through, and this is just something to think about. And I got to sign out because I am just done. You know what I'm saying? But peace and hair grease. Thanks for rolling out. I may go live again. Who knows? Maybe at midnight. All right? But we'll have fun. When I go live again, it'll be to make fun of carbonation and groups like that. Peace out.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.